Now, as far as the breaking news that I teased, let's get into that. So, over the last week or so, there's been all kinds of news regarding the future of the PFL. I have some information regarding the future of the PFL and Bellator. Of course, we know by now that PFL acquired Bellator from Paramount in late 2023. You'll recall we had Don Davis, the founder of the PFL, in studio after the announcement, and he talked all about the big plans for 2024 and beyond. They had the deal with Max, and over the last few weeks, they have this big show in Dubai, this Dubai Champion Series show, headlined by Usman Nurmagomedov defending his Bellator title against Paul Hughes, but all the promotional material has not really focused on Bellator, other than a picture of a belt and maybe the name Bellator lightweight title on the line. That's it. It's not being called a Bellator event. It doesn't look like a Bellator event. And so I started to do some digging. Now, major props to Al Zolino on social media, who sort of broke open the story of changes coming to PFL, had a lot of information regarding the change in the contracts and the payment for the finals winner and all that stuff. And he's done a great job on that story. Does a great job in general as well. So shout out to him. Shout out to Drake Riggs of Uncrowned, who did his own reporting. And I want to read what is out there right now, and I'm going to fill in some of the holes because there's some other stuff that isn't out there right now. And so this is from uncrowned.com, written by Drake Riggs. PFL is making some changes in 2025. The promotion has historically been known for its season tournament format, which rewards each division championship winner with $1 million prize. That's a $1 million prize. You'll recall over the last, 7 or so years, that's always been the big selling point, the pot at the end of the rainbow. Now, I've said, by the way, that no one cares about this, certainly not the viewers, because we are watching multi-millionaires play in the NBA, in Major League Baseball, in the NFL, in Premier League, in boxing, top of the UFC. No one is sitting around saying, hey, let's tune in to this fight because they're winning $1 million. We expect all pro athletes to make $1 million in any event. Uncrowned confirmed with sources Wednesday that the payout for season winners is dropping in half to $500,000 beginning with the upcoming 2025 season in April. The championship $1 million bonus was previously structured to be, for example, and then he goes into the whole breakdown. And so now it's going to be $500,000. Now, there's more. According to sources, PFL is also expected to remove its tournament point system and become more of a traditional Grand Prix style MMA tournament. And so, in the past, it was like, the season, and you get points for your wins and losses and finishes and all that stuff, or no points for a loss. And then maybe for a decision, who knows? It was very convoluted. And then there's the playoffs, and then there's the final. Here's what I could tell you right now, okay? Go read uncrowned.com for more on this, and go on Al's Twitter page. Right now, I could tell you on Monday, January 13th at 1:20 p.m. Eastern Time, Bellator is dead. Bellator, as we know it, is no more. Bellator is dead. You will not see Bellator events anymore. And in fact, if you have looked at Don Davis's social media over the last couple of weeks, he refers to things as all PFL. And if you look at that event on January the 25th, you will see that other than the picture of the belt and other than, in the press release it says Bellator lightweight title, there's no other mention of Bellator. Bellator, as we know it, is dead. From the Bjorn era to the Scott Coker era to the PFLator era, it is no more. And so this is what's going to happen. This is the structure. There are going to be what is being referred to as PFL Champion Series events. Those events are going to be headlined by title fights. PFL is going to start having its own champions, not just season champions, not just tournament champions, its own champion. Now, what is unclear, and I've talked to maybe 5 sources with very intimate knowledge of what is going on, unclear how they will crown those champions. Meaning, does Usman Nurmagomedov become the PFL lightweight champion after January 25th if he beats Paul Hughes, or does Paul Hughes become the PFL lightweight champion, or are the tournament winners from last year the PFL champions? My hunch says, given what they get paid And given how everything is structured, the Bellator champions would then become the PFL champions. And so how they are going to structure it is they're going to have these PFL Champion Series events, which are essentially just cards headlined by champions and filled with other talent throughout. And those will be scattered throughout the year. The PFL season format is no more. What it is now is somewhere in the range of 6 to 8 weight classes being featured, 8 fighters, 2 alternates, single elimination tournament. There's no more standings, there's no more points or anything like that. Single elimination tournament, Grand Prix style, if you will. They're not calling it a Grand Prix. I've heard because that's what Bellator used to call it, and they don't want to call it that. So it'll just be some sort of like, I think they're calling it like global tournament, global season or something like that. And it'll just be like this guy versus this guy, and you move on to the next. The winner of that tournament, single elimination tournament, gets $500,000. So it's a little bit different than the past. Like, you don't win a belt or anything. You might win some like Fakakta belt, but you're not the champion of any sort of division. It's the pot at the end of the rainbow, which is $500,000. Now, interesting to note that this is $500,000 in addition to your purse. In the old days, it wasn't 1 million in addition to your purse. It was your purse subtracted from 1 million. So if you were someone, and most fighters, and different fighters had it structured differently, but some fighters would have it like, let's say you were someone who made 150 and 150. So it would then be 700,000 that you're winning in the final. And then there were other fighters who had fixed amount, regardless of what they were making for the quarterfinals, semifinals, final, because maybe that would equal more. And so now it's none of that. You just have your contract, and if you win the tournament, you're winning $500,000. What's unclear to me at this time is if you win that, what else do you get? Do you get a shot at the champion? Unclear at this time. That hasn't really been, really kind of like laid out. But I would imagine that's the whole point of it. You win the pot, and then you become a number one contender. That's how you can build number one contenders. But again, the stuff that we've sort of criticized them for, regular season points, all that is going by the wayside. In addition to that, they'll still have your PFL Europes and your PFL Middle East, Africa, all that stuff, and that will feed up to these tournaments. But it's no longer being structured as regular season and all that, and Bellator is no more. When this first came out about the 1 million to 500,000, it felt like, oh, this is a sign that they're dead. Now, I'm being told that, like, as far as finances are concerned, they're in a good spot. They have great, solid investment, all that stuff and more. They're not hurting for cash. This is just kind of like a restructuring of how the promotion is laid out. I actually think it makes a ton more sense because hopefully now, I hate that they're calling it Champion Series. Their pay-per-views, super fight series, all that stuff is no more. Just have major events and have tournaments. You don't, not all of this needs to be broken down. Now, what's unclear also is where this January 25th event is going to air. As of right now, they haven't announced. I have been told that it might just air on YouTube, and they might just say, here, we're going to give it to you for free, which in some ways is just like, hey, we don't have a deal done, and so we're going to put it on YouTube. Maybe on Max, maybe on Amazon as well. They're in the mix too. And so there's a lot still in flux. There's a lot still at play. But what I said before regarding the format, that's all accurate. And that could be announced as recently as soon as this week. I actually think it's a win for the promotion because I hated the season. I hated the points. I hated the playoff. I hated all of that stuff. Now you can make the biggest fights for the belts, and then if you're punching your ticket for the tournament, then you're going to go that route, and that's maybe a place where you can try to build new stars. So in other words, a Cedric Doumbé, if you want, you could just put him in a title fight, as opposed to risking putting him in to a tournament. A Paul Hughes, if you want, put him in a title fight, and you don't have to risk him in the tournament. Here's one thing, and a lot of people have criticized Don Davis in particular and PFL, and some of it has been warranted and some maybe not. Here's one thing that doesn't get talked about enough. When Bellator was on its last legs and everyone under the sun knew that it was going to get sold, the old regime, Scott Coker being, the head of it, signed a lot of fighters to massive deals knowing that the end was near. And then basically said, like, the new owners, PFL, are going to have to deal with this as a nice little parting gift. There are several fighters, Gegard Mousasi, one of them, a lot of the big names that you've seen openly complain, who got these massive deals that are worth close to $1 million a fight, that it would be unsustainable for PFL to put those guys in tournaments, and this has been the problem, and it just isn't, it isn't cost effective. Sign them to these deals as a parting gift. Why Don Davis does not say this to explain the situation that he was put in, I have no idea. I don't know who's running the show behind the scenes there. Well, I know who's running the show behind the scenes there from a PR perspective. My point is, you are not speaking up. You are not letting people know the truth. And as a result, they're taking information from the disgruntled fighters, from managers, and they're able to paint their own narrative, which isn't a good one in your favor. And you're just standing back and letting everyone slag you off. Why? Tell the truth, come out, do media, explain your position, explain what you inherited, and explain what you acquired, and explain how you're going to fix it. None of these LinkedIn posts, none of these tweets, none of this stuff. You have to come out. What do people love about Dana White? They love that he was a guy who took no shit from anyone, showed up, ripped jeans, T-shirt, guns blazing, and told it like it is, at least from his perspective. And people love that, and they ate it up. Don takes the business investor approach and says, we're gonna do things slowly but surely. We're gonna do things the right way. And look, everyone has their own approach to business. In the fight game, I don't think that's the right approach. Someone talks shit about you, you have to respond. You have to respond, especially when you've been dealt a bad hand. And in large part, they were dealt a bad hand because they got a lot of these contracts that just weren't worth it. Love some of those guys, but in 2025, they are not worth that amount. And so they're making these changes. What are they going to do with those guys? Are they going to offer pay cuts? Are they going to say you could go this route and you can win this pot at the end and that could be you making up the money? That all is a work in progress. Remains to be seen. They've got this event on the 25th. New season starts a couple of, or not new season, like they pick back up. It's going to take a while to change that verbiage in our brain. A couple months later, they've got a big rights deal coming up. And there's a lot in flux. But right now, they're not hurting for cash. They're not 6 feet or 4 feet under. But I think they have recognized that the format doesn't work. The $1 million payout thing didn't work. The season format doesn't work. And they're trying to make changes. And so that's the story as far as PFL and Bellator is concerned. But ding dong, the witch is dead. Bellator, as we know it, I was going to say PFLator, it was all very confusing, is done. There's not going to be any Bellator shows. I've also been told that these plans have changed a gazillion times, and that's why I kind of sat on this for several days. But that feels quite certain at this juncture.